Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Representative. My name is Jim Fawhl. I'm an attorney who helps represent the AFLCIO. We are opposed to this measure for a number of reasons. Briefly, we're opposed to the substantive changes in how prevailing wages are calculated, primarily for the reasons that Representative Weber has articulated. Last year, after a number of years of negotiations, we came down with everybody in a room and negotiated a change in the prevailing wages, how it's calculated, that looks at each local market, county by county, also takes into consideration the union and non-union rates to help encourage everybody to do what we thought was the only fair thing to begin with, was report. People thought that the reporting was not fair the way it was done to begin with. Changes were made to more accurately reflect reporting in each and every county across the state. Therefore, we don't think any new changes are necessary. Specifically, too, with the changes that happened 5 months ago, Representative Weber, the new rates from that law have not even been established yet. They won't be established until, I believe it is March of this year. So we would be changing the law not only without a number of years to look at to see what would happen, we would never have seen what would happen, period. And I think this chamber's use of time is best spent elsewhere. As far as the definitional changes, just briefly, these definitions have been there since the law was enacted, and for over 50 years, Missouri contractors have and public bodies have interpreted, looked at, and known what these definitions mean with very little, relatively speaking, litigation. What happened was a number of years ago, an out-of-state contractor came into Missouri to do some work. The public body that they were going to work for asked them to make sure that the contractor had said that this was the work in question was maintenance work. The public body, understandably so, wanted to make sure that they were correct. The contractor wrote to the state of Missouri on 2 separate occasions asking for a ruling that the work in question was maintenance and not construction. 2 separate times the state of Missouri said, no, the work that you're worried about is construction requiring prevailing wages, at which point that out-of-state company sued the state of Missouri up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had to tell them what the Department of Labor had told them to begin with, that no, the work in question was construction. Therefore, because Missouri contractors, Missouri public bodies, and Missouri workers understand what these definitions are as they stand, we don't think they need to change, and I believe the changes that are suggested, as was discussed between the representative and the bill sponsor, are kind of confusing and vague as it is. And while lawyers love confusing and vague because it makes work for lawyers, I don't think it's in the best policy as it is now to make those changes.
Representative Frame. Briefly, please.
Thank you, sir.
I'll join you in your surprise. I guess I've seen this legislation. I thought we had a done deal last year on this thing, and was a bit surprised when I saw it this year. Can you speak briefly, and not that you indicate anything you have knowledge there, but just wanting to know if you do have knowledge, why was prevailing wage law created in the first place?
My understanding of the purpose of prevailing wage law is, to the extent constitutional, make sure that local workers, be them as local as possible workers, do the work for the state or public body. Also, so that the state or public body is not used to reduce wages in the private sector.
Right, and that was always my assumption, was that prevailing wage laws are there to protect Missouri workers from migrant labor, because we've got a standard of living kind of established here. We've got wages established, and folks from, name another state, Mississippi, Alabama, on and on, coming up here, Oklahoma, Arkansas, coming up here to steal our construction dollars, especially when weather breaks where construction begins, and these folks come up here and underbid us, and then take those dollars back home, wherever home may be, enjoying the fruits of our labor. correct?
The fruits of our tax dollars,
I'm sorry, tax dollars.
without our tax dollars without that money being also re-put back into the communities, correct?
Right. So once we've established then a prevailing wage law, and everyone is going to make the same, I don't mean this, but we know what each worker is going to make, and union or non-union alike are going to be paid the same wage for that craft. How does Missouri win?
Well, Missouri wins in a number of ways. Actually, I think the public bodies win because they know what these bids should come in at. The public bodies can look at and see what the wage is when bidding it, and at least better plan the bid rather than relying on somebody else's wage rates that are an unknown at that point. Also, it helps to the extent possible to make sure that workers in the state of Missouri or the public bodies are trained for the future and have those tax dollars feed back into the public bodies.
And I'm glad you had the last one on the train, because it would appear to me that if we're going to be paying a pipe fitter a certain wage, be it union or non-union, and then how is that particular school district, government entity, state of Missouri, whatever, how are they going to win? Because it would seem to me that the one who is better trained, who is able to produce more in a finite period of time, that'll be the worker that was he's able to outbid the other guy, was because he can do it faster, he can do it better, he can do it more safely without those actors pulling him down and costing time. Correct?
Correct. It keeps people in the industry.
Right. And then my very last question would be, your suspicion under this then, if we went to Representative Love's new prevailing wage bill, wages across our state, especially with the construction industry, would they stagnate? Would they drop considerably? Would they rise? Where do you think we'd be?
I think they would, my opinion is that they would fall across, even in the, they'd fall in the areas that are affected insofar as not even, that it's I believe it's a median that's being used, and no fringe benefit rates are even included. As far as the other area rates, I believe those will fall as well because of the changes that are made therein, plus the outside effects of it as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hampton,
To inquire.
go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
My eyesight's not as good as it once was, nor are my ears. So let me just reaffirm basically what I thought I heard you say. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me on this. If local contractors in additional counties reported their wages itself, and according to the Department of Labor itself, if the average wage is lower than the prevailing wage, then that wage takes effect. Is that correct or incorrect?
The way that it works in the state of Missouri after the changes is that in third and fourth class counties in the state of Missouri, everybody reports every contractor reports their hours. In third and fourth class counties, the Department of Labor looks and says, are more of these hours worked under a collective bargaining agreement or not worked under a collective bargaining agreement? In an issue where there's been no union contractor or no contractor who's non-union but working under a CBA has worked, say it's only non-union contractors, those hours would then be looked at, and whichever pay rate occurs the most frequently wins. It could be 2 hours, it could be 1 hour.
So the majority wins, is that what we're saying?
It's the most frequently occurring.
And if that's being the case, then you have no opposition, is that correct?
Well, we had opposition to it last year, but we negotiated this, correct.
Okay, but I mean, that is according to the Department of Labor. That's what they go by.
The Missouri Department of Labor.
Correct.
Yes. That's how it's determined in third and fourth class counties.
And if that's followed, then you're all right with it.
Well, I mean, obviously in a perfect world, we'd all like things to be different. However, that's the law that was negotiated, and that's the law that needs to be followed now, correct?
Well, I know I still believe in Santa Claus, don't tell me differently.
Wouldn't dare.
So, all right, I just wanted to clarify that so we make sure that we're apples and apples.
Yes, the law as it exists now, it has the support of organized labor. We were in the negotiating room, and that is and that bill went through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, testifying